All right, hello and welcome back to AJM in the AM. I know I've been gone for a little while. Combination of being sick and then just being busy between work, watching the game, spending time with my family and friends, and doing all the things that make life great. But there's a lot to catch up on. So there's not much I can really touch on about the NBA Finals that you don't already know at this point. You've seen everything that you possibly could have seen leading into this. The Denver Nuggets are your new 2023 NBA champions. First title in 47 years. Nikola Jokic had a series of playoffs, for that matter, for the ages. And we're going to go over that really quick. Congrats to the Nuggets. Congrats to the Nuggets fans. You guys deserve it. You guys hung in there. You guys trusted a process and made it work. So really dope. Everybody there has gained in exorbitant amounts of value. People like Jamal Murray coming back from those injuries, Michael Porter Jr. kind of shutting down the lack of defensive intensity talk, kind of changing the series with his effort and energy. Bruce Brown, a player who in an interview after one of the games said that another team passed up on me because they said I would not be able to play with them, and then promptly had a 21-point night in the NBA Finals and was pivotal in a Denver win. So, Nikola Jokic, officially the best player in today's NBA. Overtook Giannis. I know it's going to be kind of like a, pick what you want, pick your flavor kind of thing. But Jokic dominated. He did not have a single bad game. And we're going to go over that. So, if you go to Basketball Reference, which is, I think everybody's favorite, I don't know how else to describe it, but like your favorite basketball resource when it comes to knowledge and information, they have a catch-all metric called a game score, which accumulates all of your stats, misses, turnovers, all of the things that matter in a single game, and they give you an overall score for it. Average, it's about 15 to 20. Really good is 20 to 30. Above 30 is sensational. And if you get above 40, that's legendary territory that you start touching on. Jokic had his lowest game score was 14.2, and it was a blowout win over the Wolves. That was also his lowest scoring game, where he only had 13 points to go along with 14 boards and 6 dimes. Every other game, he scored 20 points or more. He scored 20 in 19 of 20 playoff games. And maybe his weakness, right? You talk about weakness when it comes to certain players. Some guys can't shoot. Some guys don't like it when you're physical with them. Some guys are bad defenders, right? That's Nikola Jokic's biggest red mark on what he can do on a basketball court. And I will argue, watching that finals, that he changed it, not with his passing, not with his scoring, even though his scoring was incredible. He changed it with his defense. What was Miami trying to do? They would attack him on the pick and roll over and over and over again. And what did he do every single time they trapped Bam? He got a kick ball on those little pocket passes, completely negating the action, restarting the clock at 14, and it cuts out whatever mismatch they would have had under the basket. Every single time somebody drove into the basket, when he was doing more of the drop coverage instead of the trap, what did he do? That big swing down, the swipe at the ball, and how many of those became steals? He did a phenomenal job defensively, and I think we got to give him the credit for that. For someone as limited athletically as he is, he did a sensational job at locking down Miami's offensive focus points, and they're taking away their ability to target mismatches and their ability to target him. He did a great job. So not much more to go about Jokic. He's probably the best player in the world at the moment, and he had a playoff run for the ages. Next, what happened to Jimmy Butler? There's the side-by-side stat line going around from last week showing what he was pre-ankle injury when Josh Hart did the little sub-zero slide into his ankle to post-ankle injury, and it was a marked difference. A huge gap in production, a huge change in what he can do, and part of it might be that. But he didn't take it as an excuse, and I don't think anybody should either. Because game 1 and game 2, was he hurt against the Celtics? I don't think so. He had 2 brilliant games. He went out there, gave him 35, 30-something, and really good defense on the other side of things. So I think it was just more of, you see him be a little more tentative. His actual offensive game planning and his offensive capabilities are pretty limited. It's always the same thing, which is why I was getting so frustrated at Milwaukee and their defensive approach. They kept just Jrue Holiday on an island over and over and over again. And once he figured that out, there was nothing they could do. And they didn't even try to do anything else. They just trusted Jrue Holiday to take that assignment, and he failed routinely. And then it led to one of the most legendary first-round playoff series ever. So other teams started buckling down on changing the defensive coverages, changing double teams, not letting him get the rhythm that he had in the entire first round. And it led to a more subpar series every series down the line. And one thing we've learned about JB over the course of the last couple of years, beyond, knee tendonitis flaring up, a couple of ankle injuries flaring up, is he burns out. He puts in so much effort and energy every single night that he just becomes fatigued down the stretch of long playoff runs or down the stretch of very long games. So that's kind of what we saw. Another thing that I really want to touch on before we move on to the Bradley Beal trade is Jason Tatum, dude. That was soft. Game 7, very first play, he sprains his ankle. I know everybody's body is different. Everybody handles pain differently. Jason Tatum is one of the 10 best players in today's game. You could argue top 7, you could argue top 5, and you would have a very valid argument to that positioning of Jason Tatum. But him absolutely folding in Game 7 at home because his ankle hurt is inexcusable to me. In the playoffs alone, Jalen Brunson was playing on a messed up ankle and a messed up leg. And you know what he did? He went out in Game 6 kicking and screaming. 42 points and came this close to beating the Heat and forcing a Game 7 that would have been in the Garden. That's a guy who has heart. Jimmy Butler got kicked in the ankle by Josh Hart and had a nasty ankle sprain. The reports were that it grew to the size of I think they said a tennis ball. It looked like a tennis ball in his ankle. He played on that over and over again. Same thing last year, knee tendonitis, played on that over and over again. And he played hard. Nikola Jokic, I think it was Game 3 or Game 4, goes for a little bunny in the lane, falls back down. That's 285 pounds on his ankle, came back and balled out. Marcus Smart last year against the Heat, Game 3, Kyle Lowry rolls on his ankle, and it looked horrible. It looked like a career-ending injury in real time. In the third quarter, he comes back, plays the rest of that game, 4 points, 4 assists in the fourth quarter, and played obviously the rest of the series incredibly hard. I don't know how many times I watched Jason Tatum get the ball on just bringing it up the court. Jaylen Brown's like, yo, Tatum, bring it up. And he just smacked it back to him. How many plays did he just stand on the sideline waiting for an open three to come his way? It was just soft. It's like, dude, this is the end of your season if you don't play. This may be the last opportunity you have to play alongside Jaylen Brown. This is probably your last best chance at winning an NBA championship. I know they've lived in the conference finals the last couple of seasons. Basically his entire career they've lived there. That's not guaranteed. Ask Joel Embiid. He hasn't even smelled the conference finals yet. And he's been in the league for almost a decade. So, I don't know. It was just disgusting effort for me. Something that I found just absolutely appalling. Famous ankle injuries happen all the time. Players play on them consistently, and they play hard. Isaiah Thomas's, one of his most signature performances is him dropping 40-something points on the Lakers, and he can't even walk up the court. And Jason Tatum is just standing there on the sidelines. Just turned himself from one of the 5 best players in the league today to Jason Kapono without the ball movement. It was just horrific to watch, and something that I feel we don't talk about right now. And I think it should be spoken about. It's not, that lack of effort is appalling to me as a basketball fan, especially when you're one of the top players in today's game. You know, I expect more from the best, and that was not it. Going forward, just a couple days ago, I think yesterday or this morning, I think yesterday, right? Bradley Beal from the Washington Wizards gets traded. The reports were he was choosing between Phoenix and Miami. He has a no trade clause, so he can say no to any trade that he deems is too much, and then kind of, ties Washington's hands together. I was saying last year I thought it was a bad decision to sign him to a 5-year supermax worth upwards of 200 and something $million. He's getting paid, I think it was like 251 million, which is, or 57 million, which is crazy. They decided to pay him that anyway. Wasn't a good idea, and they traded him away a year later, and they got basically nothing. So this is the trade: Bradley Beal, Jordan Goodwin, and Isaiah Todd, all Wizards from basically 2 days ago, are now Phoenix Suns. And in return, the Wizards get Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, an unspecified amount of second-round picks. I believe the Suns had 5 to trade, and then they have an unspecified amount of swaps. So we don't know what the numbers are behind the picks or the swaps, at least not yet. But that's not a lot for a superstar player. You look at the other superstar trades, and I don't think Bradley Beal is a superstar, but you look at other star trades, usually there's a first-rounder in there somewhere. The Suns, unfortunately, do not have one to trade, so they're kind of hamstrung. And Bradley Beal, at this point, I think he's more of a deteriorating asset. I know he's only 29. He turns 30 soon. But he's averaged 23 the last couple of years. He's been really unhealthy the last couple of years. A lot of nagging injuries, things that kept him off the court. So those might have fit into his trade value, not to mention the fact that he had a no-trade clause. I think there's only been like 10 players in league history to have a no-trade clause. And Bradley Beal is one of them, which is, I'm pretty sure if you take that list and you just look at all 10 of those dudes, Bradley Beal is probably the worst one on that list by far. I don't know. It was kind of weird, though. I do believe he had heavy say in the fact that he went to the Suns, because I find it very hard to believe that the Miami Heat couldn't match or give you a better offer than that. I know they have 3 picks to trade. Even a first-round swap might have been better. I know they have second-rounders, too. And basically, it's the same asset as taking Victor Oladipo's expiring and Kyle Lowry's expiring. So you wouldn't have to get rid of Hero. But I don't know. Really, really weird trade. But now Phoenix has a big 3. And the 3 of them combined last year, almost 80 points per game. I think it's like 51 between Beal and Booker combined. And then an additional like 27.8 from Kevin Durant. So you're looking at like 78 points per game. Obviously, their usage is going to drop, but that also is going to open things up on the floor for them. They don't have a point guard anymore. It's going to be weird. Obviously, I think Booker can handle more of the ball handling responsibilities. We saw it in the postseason where he actually looks like a really, really good passer. More of the concern comes from, what are you going to do with the rest of the pieces, right? I was watching a lot of these podcasts today, like the Hoop Collective, very good one with Brian Windhorst. Totally recommended if you're into basketball at all. Incredible, incredible stuff. If you have an hour to kill, maybe you work a job like I do where you can just put on headphones and just go to work. Really solid listen. He's in the belief that the Suns are just going to blow by the tax apron. And I think it makes sense, to be honest. They have early bird rights, non-bird rights, and they have, I think, bird rights to just Darius Bazley. So they have the ability to pay more than the minimums to these specific players, and that'll put them way past the tax threshold. But they can pay them. And maybe those players are willing to take, a couple mil off the top of their salary to stay there with the opportunity to win a championship. We're talking about guys like Torrey Craig, Jacques Landale, Darius Bazley, of course, amongst others that would have the opportunity to play alongside Beal, Ayton, Durant, and Devin Booker, which is a crazy quartet of talent. The problem is those 4 guys are going to have to share the court, right? And Bill Simmons had a really good point. In the final 8 minutes, what's your lineup? So obviously those 4, then who's your 5th? Who's going to take on the defensive assignment? I do think Kevin Durant is a very good defender, but he puts so much on the offensive side of things that he's usually burnt out for defense. And he's also going to be more than likely their second biggest player. So is he going to be banging in the paint like that? Are you going to put that kind of wear and tear on those treads that have been very injured the last couple of years? They have a lot of really deep questions to answer. And a lot of it's going to come down to X's and O's. The talent is there. They got to find a way to make it work. I do think on the defensive side of things, their defensive ace is probably going to be Devin Booker. We watched him evolve the last couple of years to being one of the better defensive players in the NBA. He's been sensational on the defensive side of things, especially in this postseason. You watched him really just lock up, putting an extreme amount of effort in on the perimeter. So If that translates, he still has very young legs. I can see him doing it pretty consistently. It's just a matter of, who's going to be next. Because Beal, I've never seen him as a good defender. I don't think anybody has, for that matter. And now he's kind of it's got to be a better defender. Is he going to be able to buy into the system? You're talking about going from, I don't even know how many touches a game he was having, but I'm assuming he was somewhere in the upper 20s for usage rate, which is pretty high. And now he's going to be down maybe high teens. The third option is not an easy role to buy into. I do hope that Beal is able to at this point of his career, because he hasn't seen success at all. Maybe playing alongside other guys like Kevin Durant, who has taken that approach where, hey, I don't need as many touches. I can play off the ball. Steph Curry, you do your thing. Or, hey, Kyrie, you and Harden do your thing. I'll get possessions in there. Don't worry about me. Maybe he could take that approach, learning from him who's done it. Maybe he could talk to Booker, figure some stuff out. But they have a lot of work to get done there. And a lot of it's going to start with the coaching staff, which I'm actually a fan of Frank Vogel. I think he's going to bring a good culture to these guys. And hopefully Beal also takes into account calling those other big three third options. Chris Bosh, a guy who had 0 points in an NBA Finals Game 7. Right, that's a hard pill to swallow when you're one of the 15 best players in the league, 25 best players in the league. Now you don't even get a single point in the biggest game of your career. You're going to have to be able to do that. Ray Allen, a guy who went from 21 shots a game in Seattle to then getting, I think it was like 13 or 12 shots a game in Boston, but it was for the greater good. You got to be more efficient at your shots. So those are the things that are going to be really important down there. But I do like the move. It took a little while for me to zoom out and really see the bigger picture on it. What were the Suns this season with Chris Paul and Landry Shamet, without Bradley Beal, pre-trade? They were a team that had very limited assets and that were very high in payroll. What are they now with Bradley Beal and no Landry Shamet, no Chris Paul? They're a team with very limited assets and high salary and payroll. It's the same thing, except now they may potentially have a more reliable option because Chris Paul is guaranteed to get hurt. It's become a meme at this point because it's true. He's always injured, especially down the stretch of the biggest games of your season. Consistently, he's gonna miss playoff games. He's gonna miss big stretches throughout the regular season. And I know Beal's had some injury issues the last couple of years, but prior to that, he was an Iron Man. This guy was giving you 78 to 82 games a year. And I know he's had some nagging stuff, and that's something that he's gonna have to figure out. But hopefully that Phoenix training staff, I know it's been 15, 20 years since they were the best training staff in the world. Maybe they can bring back some of that magic. So, weird fit for those three players, but I think they can make it work. They have the aggregate talent to do so. They have, I believe, the will and the mindset in terms of Booker and KD to be able to bring that to the table. And then worst case, just trade Ayton. The guy's miserable. He doesn't want to be there. He hasn't wanted to be there for years. And you guys just kind of forced him there. So move on from him. He's $32 million. You can shed to 2 or 3 $10 million players. It might be worth it. You might get some solid wings. Maybe you get another versatile big man. You guys couldn't even play him against the Nuggets. He was unplayable against the Nuggets. So please just free him. Free my guy. He's miserable there. And I know you got to work. I believe in that. But at the same time, he gave you every single warning sign possible that he was unhappy and that he did not want to play for you. And you signed him to that contract anyway. So not all of that's his fault. You guys did not do anything to make him happy. So trade him. Just move on from him. He's a valuable asset. Somebody's going to be willing to take on that contract with how young he is. And he's incredibly gifted. He's been being held back in that system for a couple of seasons now. It's just a matter of, can you deal with his mental immaturity to compensate? So we got to, it's a big question mark, but they have a movable asset at least. Now, the other big name that was available in trade talks, not available, but has been heavily speculated on for trade talks, Damian Lillard. As a Portland fan, nothing pains me more than to watch Damian Lillard go without winning a title for us. But this is the best opportunity to, if you were ever going to do it, it's now, because the assets that we have are not nearly enough to build a contender or a championship team around him. First off, who's selling? Who in the NBA right now is selling players? Most of them are competing. Most of them have already built up young players through the draft. OKC, Detroit, Indiana with their own little trades, Orlando. Those are teams that were selling a few years ago, i.e., Aaron Gordon, players like that were moved around the league that made other teams more competitive. Who right now is selling? Toronto. The only team that I can think of that's selling players. Maybe you can finagle something with the Hornets, but they seem like they're standing pat. They have a leadership change at the top with Jordan selling the team. So we got to see what goes on there. That potentially could be a selling team. Who else? The Bulls? That's fool's gold. Any trade with the Bulls right now is fool's gold. Unless you're getting Alex Caruso, there's not much there that would change anybody's fortune to becoming a better roster. DeMar DeRozan's an older asset, older player. Zach LaVine has never been that good. In terms of winning, obviously, he's incredibly talented. That's not going to change your fortunes. And neither is Vucevic. So you're kind of screwed when it comes to that team. You look at Toronto. Pascal Siakam is a very nice player. I think he could help a team. They're not trading OG Anunoby. Just came out. They're 100% hesitant to even want to pick up phone calls for him. So that's, a wing player that nobody's going to get. I believe it was earlier this season that Memphis offered them 3 first-round picks, exactly what they were looking for. All the reports, hey, we want, multiple first-rounders and swaps. And Memphis was like, yo, take it, please. We need him. And they said no. So he's not on the table. Dallas is looking to be a buyer. Golden State's looking to be a buyer. The Lakers are going to be buyers. The Kings are building something really nice out there. Denver has their same team. They're not moving nobody. Who else is selling? OKC isn't moving anything. They have a bright young core there. They're building. The Pacers, bright young core there. Obviously, they have some weird things going on with Buddy Hield and Turner. 2 really good pieces that can be moved. Maybe that can be a play. I heard Matherin's on the dock, but that's kind of weird. He just came off of his rookie season where I think he was first team all rookie, 20 points per game. And now Matherin's on the trade block. It's a little fishy. Philly's not selling, at least not yet. They might soon if everything folds up over there. It's just it's not a good idea to build right now around Dame when you don't have the assets to make moves. The Pelicans really want to get potentially the 2 or 3 pick for potentially Scoot Henderson. That's the only place I can see a viable option. Are they going to move on from Zion? Are they going to move on from Ingram? Those are the only 2 names that have been popping up. But, trading back for CJ is a dumb idea. You're just pigeonholing yourself back to the same mediocrity you had over the last 6 years. And now you have the opportunity to potentially get Zion, which I think is probably the best option. You trade the 2nd pick, whatever else, get Zion Williamson. Now you have Dame and Zion. Even if it doesn't work out, kaput. You could trade Dame next year. Get a couple first-round picks. Obviously, he's not going to be as valuable as he was this year. As he gets older and higher up there in age, 33, 34, it's not a good look. But maybe you can get 2 firsts, 3 firsts when you can get 3 firsts now. So it's just really weird that Portland's not trying to trade Dame now when this is the best opportunity to do so. Especially with the 3 pick. If you get Scoot, you're pivoting from franchise cornerstone point guard to potentially franchise cornerstone point guard, and you would have it locked up. I've been saying this since the beginning of my channel. Scoot Henderson is a dog. He's not a consolation prize, right? Everybody keeps eyeing him as like, Victor Wembanyama. Scoot Henderson's right there. This guy's awesome. Did you guys not watch that showcase game when last year when they were fighting, like they had to play each other, and Scoot was like, nah, I want him. Give me the screen. I want Vic. Like, you can't teach that. That's just him. That is the dog in him to be better, to take on the guy that's supposed to be the best. That is an unteachable skill. That is something that you have to be born with, or you don't have it. And he has it. You have the opportunity to draft that man. All you got to do is be able to move on from Dame, because you can't draft him and keep him. It's disrespectful to Dame. Now, if you do trade Dame, where's he going to go? I've seen the names floated around. You have Miami, you have Boston. He mentioned these teams also by name. You have the Knicks, which is a weird one, and then the Nets. Those are the 4 teams, for some reason, all along the East Coast that he was interested in. Which of those makes the most sense? For me, I think the team that makes the most sense for Dame is Miami, right? Obviously, the package that Miami can send to Portland is horrible. In my eyes, I think it's not a good package. You're going to get back $120 million of Tyler Hero, so you're just going to backlog your books for no reason to get a glorified Lou Williams. And you get third-party Duncan Robinson, another $18 million guy who has thrived in their system, but sometimes is completely unplayable in their system. With the best coach, he can't find a use for him. There's kind of like not really getting good value back, and then you're going to get really, really bad first-round picks. Because when is Miami not competitive? They're always competitive. You're going to get, at the best, the 5th-year pick, right? 5 years from now, Dame's already retiring. You know, Jimmy Butler's retired. Bam's in his early 30s. That pick, probably going to be like 14 to 16. If they haven't found another way to rebuild. So, not really good value on the picks, and definitely no value on the players that you would return. I believe the best asset haul for Portland can come from the Nets. You'll get the same kind of negative player assets, people like Joe Harris, to fill up the cap space, but you have an opportunity to get real good draft capital. You can take some of those Phoenix picks, which are looking like gold right now, the ones further down the line. They have some of their own picks now. They have Philly's pick for a couple of years from now in 2027. Those draft picks are going to be worth tons. And that's something that I think would be the best haul that Portland can get back for Dame. Another good team that he can go to, we mentioned the Celtics. Celtics can send, Jaylen Brown. Hey, 2 timelines. You guys do your thing. We take our thing. We open up the window for Tatum by giving him a bona fide point guard who actually can score and can dribble the basketball, unlike Jaylen Brown. You guys get a very young superstar stud. Max contract, 4 years. You guys take that money. We don't want to have to pay both these guys $200 million. We'd rather pay this guy and this guy $200 million each. Your problem, my problem type of deal. Now you pair Scoot with Jaylen Brown and Shaedon Sharpe. You have a solid little trifecta of talent. But Boston doesn't seem to have any interest in making that trade. So, it's hope for the Blazers instead of actually making a good deal. And then the Knicks one makes no sense to me at all. Because they would just be signing themselves up for the same problem we've had in Portland. You would be taking a brilliantly talented, undersized point guard and pairing him up with a really, really talented, undersized 2-guard. And now you guys have the same defensive woes and the biggest hole you can possibly have in the game by having 2 undersized defensive players trying to... You can't hide them both, and you're going to have to try to run a defense like that. It's not possible. So... those are the options. I just think it's weird for Miami because now they're going to potentially swing and miss on another free agent class. I've mentioned it a few times on this channel, I believe. I know we give the Miami organization a lot of flowers, and they deserve it. They've created a brilliant culture there. They have been in the mix for championships for my entire life, essentially. And their players are consistently over exceeding their expectations and expected value, right? These back end undrafted players, these 2nd-round picks, a lot of these guys become something. These middle lottery picks, I think Bam was like a 14th pick. Hero, I think Hero is actually a top 10 pick. But those kinds of players being drafted and developed have worked out really well in that culture. But at the same time, when's the last big trade they made, right? This is the one that I continuously mention. They've had some good signings, right? They obviously signed Jimmy Butler. I think that's it. In the last 15 years, the last big trade they made was for Shaq. That was the last marquee player that was disgruntled somewhere else that they actually were able to move assets to get. And back then, they actually had the assets to do it. You had a very young Caron Butler, had a brilliant career, and you had a very young Lamar Odom, who also had a brilliant career. 2 cogs and a championship teams. And they got back old, but still incredibly talented Shaquille O'Neal. That's the last one they made. Everything else was free agent signings. So it's not really that they're finessing other teams for their assets. More so, they've been able to really take advantage of the certain markets in the league, like buyout players. I mentioned in a video earlier this year, buyout market, top 5 players. Kevin Love was on my list. And I said, I can see him doing wonders in Miami. And he gets picked up by Miami and brought wonders to Miami. The outlet passing was brilliant. The 3-point shooting was dope. Like, he did a great job out there, rebounding, box outs, taking charges, right? Like, these are the things that you can find. And this is what Miami is incredible at. They're able to take any level of talent for player and put them in the position to succeed the most. I think that Dame would thrive out there. It's just what they can trade for him. Unless Portland is doing them a solid, I don't think it's going to happen. Well, not doing them a solid, doing Dame a solid. Because if they get Dame, they should be one of the top title contenders for next year, which is incredible to me that they're not this year. If you looked at the odds, it's like, yeah, Denver number 1, of course, they just came off the title. I think it's Boston number 2, the Bucks number 3. The Heat just washed them, and they didn't even have one of their players, 2 of their players, because Oladipo blew his quad. And then I think it's the Suns, the Lakers, and then Golden State. And the Heat are nowhere even on the list. It's like they couldn't even make the list. They just came off the finals, and in game 5, I know they lost, but that was like a 5-point game. You know what I mean? It came down to a really bad 3-point shot by Jimmy Butler at the end of the game to tie it. It really confuses me that they're not on the list. But that's it. I appreciate, everybody stopping by to hear me rant about this stuff. I hope you enjoy it. Maybe you learned something. And if you want to continue the debate, the comments are always open. Thank you so much for watching. I'm AJM in the AM, and I'll catch you next.